first we have a public safety discussion with our police chief, Hagerstown Police Chief Joey Kifer. Hi, Chief.
Hi.
And I see Sheriff Mullin coming up, or
Sheriff and Lieutenant Cluse.
Lieutenant Cluse, and
We might as well bring them all.
yeah, I was about to say there's another chair for.
Come on up.
Sir?
Come on up, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking to you.
It's you. It's you. It's not Paul Fry. He can stay back there.
I'll let everybody introduce themselves here if that's okay, Mayor.
Yes, thank you.
Brian Albert, Sheriff of Washington County.
Brian Close, I'm the Commander of the State Police here in Washington County.
Tyron Powell, Field Operations Bureau, Headquarters, State Police.
Thank you. You're gonna kick us off, our city administrator.
All right, so I know that you guys had asked for us to come before you. We were going to do this a couple weeks ago, and you guys asked us to postpone until now so you guys could talk to some other entities and organizations. So we're here to talk to you guys and answer any questions you may have as to what law enforcement really looks like in Hagerstown and Washington County, and how the three agencies that are seated before you work together, and how we operate, what we can and can't do, and why, if that's the questions that you have. So we know that this was brought about by the letter that was sent to you by Senator Corderman, and there were some questions and some points in that letter that we're more than willing to address and answer. So we could either start off by just commenting right now, or if you want or have specific questions, that might be a better avenue of discussion, so we can meet the needs that you guys have.
I mean, I think the first thing I'll say is, first, thank you for being here. And it was abundantly clear as a simple observer in a room just a couple weeks ago, the meeting at the library, again, just as an observer, one, how professional and close-knit and astute the three representatives were in speaking to the questions that were raised. The information that you provided, I think that's something we don't always get to see because we're so focused on the singular police department that we, are entrusted to govern. But we are certainly not, immune to the conversations and comments made in the public, whether it be, somebody takes an item from the Walmart down on Sharpsburg Pike. While sitting here in this chair, I may understand that that's outside of the city limits. There is nothing in my mind when I read a comment like that in the public arena that says that you guys aren't communicating to the effect of addressing that issue as sort of a singular unit, regardless of the area in which that occurrence happens. And it's a shame, at least for me, because when I sat in that room over at the library and you guys fielded probably 60% of the conversation of questions of that meeting, that, it was done with the absolute awareness that your departments and that they function well within themselves and good together. So that was just my observation as somebody sitting there.
I'll just take a moment to make a comment. Obviously, we probably take it for granted as our law enforcement brothers and sisters that we work together every day. We just take it for granted that we're out there. My motto when I was elected, if someone calls 911 and they need somebody to respond, they don't care they just want a gun and a badge to come. And that's kind of simplistic, but it's true. They don't care if it's city police or sheriff or state police or in some municipalities, Hancock, Smithsburg, and Boonesboro. They just want somebody to respond and take care of their problem that day. So that's the motto that we work off of. I think we probably take it for granted how much we work together, especially the city and the county. I mean, we do the academy together. We couldn't do it without them, without the city's help, and they couldn't, stand alone. We get caught in that too small to be big and too big to be small, and without partnerships, we just can't do it. The narcotics task force, we work together. the warrant squad with the warrant task force, that's with all three agencies that we work together. You know, and that just goes unnoticed. We take it for granted that that happens, but that's every morning. It's state police, city police, and sheriff deputies that are on that task force together and going out and serving warrants throughout the city and the county all over. So that's just one thing that I wanted to mention. We probably take it for granted, and we're not really good at selling ourselves. And probably public perception is that the city does their own thing and the deputies aren't going in there, or the state police is doing their own thing. But that's not the case. It's all a cohesive unit within the county that works to get the job done.
So I'll give an example. The impetus that started this whole thing off was the murder on East Washington Street and the daytime shooting that ended in a death. Very, very bad thing happened that day. And for the grace of God, no one else that was involved in an incident was injured, and we didn't have any other fatalities or injuries. But with that, the worst thing could happen. A major thoroughfare through our city, middle of the day, during the week, the amount of traffic and people that are moving around, that was a huge challenge to manage, along with all of the tracking down and running the investigation and taking every lead possible, and everyone had something to do. Everyone. That could not have happened without the help of both of these agencies being there. They were in the city. They were helping us. They had deputies on the crime scene for a long time. We finally freed them up to go out and do the things they had to do once we got everything settled down. I directed traffic in the square for an hour just to keep traffic from going down into the crime scene. Not because I'm too good to or not good enough to. It's everyone steps up and does what they have to do in that moment. And it doesn't matter what rank you are, it doesn't matter what uniform you wear, you step up and you do what you got to do to deal with it. And that's just one example of what we do. When there's an incident at the mall, we're at the mall helping. If there's a shooting at the mall, if there's something tragic happens there, we're out there. If MSP needs help on something that's major, we're there. I mean, we have that built into our DNA. We're just like firefighters. I mean, you guys know the firefighters go everywhere in the county when there's a fire, because that's what we do. And so if we're running outside the city, these guys are running into the city to help us as well. But there's limitations to what we can do on a regular basis, that you're just doing on a regular day. When those incidents happen, when those situations occur, it's all hands on deck. We all come to help and do what we got to do. But to ask for, to ask the county to come in and do something in the city on a regular basis isn't the same thing. They don't have the staffing level with what they've got to do and how they got to manage their police department to do that. MSP can't do that. They have their limitations with it. It'd be the same as asking us to go into the county and patrol in the county because they're short-staffed. It just doesn't work. So even though that seems like that's the answer, is just take extra people from other agencies and bring them on, no one has that ability to do that. That just doesn't exist in the real world. And I think that's that lack of knowledge that people have, because you think you see cops in the county, you see cops in the city, just put them all together and they can do the job. The county's a big county. There's a lot of stuff that still has to be done. And people in the rural areas outside of those municipalities of Boonesboro and Hancock, they want police coverage too. So if you're going to say the sheriff's department should be coming into the city and doing the work here and leaving those places vacant, that's not fair. That's not fair to the county residents that are out there as well. So I will defend these two gentlemen every day of the week, because they come in and they provide everything they can for me and my staff whenever we need it. And I've never, ever said that they didn't do that, and never have they ever turned down something that they could help. And, when Judge Wilkinson was murdered, we were all working that. I mean, every one of us was out into the county and helping and doing what we could to help the sheriff's department that night.
We had
Those
too
are things
many
we do.
resources that night, almost. But I mean, it was everybody.
But
that's just a
That's
good
the nature.
example.
That's the nature of it. That people come off duty, come out and help. I mean, those are the situations where it just happens. So, but from a day-to-day standpoint, it's impossible to say I need you to come in here and do X, Y, and Z for me on a regular basis every day, and forego your duties elsewhere. I can't do it for them. They can't do it for me. So I just wanted to make that point very clear.
First of all, again, thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. And for your support of the city of Hagerstown. And I will say that I don't think that we would ever not want to be supporting law enforcement in the county or in the state. As far as I'm concerned, that's, as the chief alluded to in different words, that's our mission. You know, it occurs to me that one of the things that drove the conversation to which you just responded, Chief, and for those who are now able to, witness this conversation in this public meeting, is that, as Councilman Alshire mentioned, I also was an observer of the meeting at the library, and 2 Mondays ago, and believe me, it's incredibly difficult for me to sit through an hour and a half, almost 2-hour meeting without saying a word. But our role was to listen. And we did not comment at all. I did not comment at all. Having said that, one of the things I heard and has been continuously kind of put out in what I'll call misinformation form is the staffing level of the various agencies. And in a very simplistic way, my takeaway was that for patrol, which I know is only one part of each of the law enforcement agencies, but the patrol division, the officers that are out on the streets, my takeaway was 6, 6, and 3. At any given time, on any given shift, there are 6 patrol officers in the city of Hagerstown. And I think to maybe several people, including Senator's surprise, Sheriff Albert, you mentioned that you also have 6 patrol officers for the entire rest of the county at any given time.
That's our minimums. Yes.
Yeah, and then the state police, the gentleman that was there before, said there are 3 state police, obviously different areas of the county, but mostly interstate and so forth. And I'm not going to get into the detail, but I think that was a very eye-opening set of facts and figures. And then as I described that in subsequent conversations, the comments that I got were, well, that doesn't seem like very much. Yet when I was downtown, leaving the library, on the sidewalk, having a conversation, not in that 10 or 15 minute span, I counted 5 times that a Hagerstown Police Department patrol car came by one way or another through that intersection in those few minutes that I was standing there. So one of the things that I know that we do as a city police department, because we pass these contracts, is incorporating technology into our policing. And I'd like you to talk about that a little bit, but not only just kind of showing off the technology we use, but why it's important, how it's a force multiplier. And to the extent that applies as well to the other agencies, I think that's important. So if you could comment on that a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. And I want to, again, to make sure that we have the right information. So 6 is our minimum patrol officers. That doesn't count the supervisory staff that's also working those shifts. That could be up to 2 more sergeants working. That depends on time of day, Monday through Friday. You may have some lieutenants working during the day. We have the downtown squad guys working during the day. During the certain parts of the day that overlaps daylight and nighttime, you have the narcotics task force agents that are working for both the county and the city. They're all available for those needs that come out. So yes, for just that everyday handling a call for service, a minimum 6. And during the summer, we're all at that minimum during the summer. Everybody wants off during that time. But when you hit fall and winter, those numbers are higher. So I want to make sure that you're aware, and I know
Thank you
that the
for
sheriff will
clarifying.
say the same thing, that their numbers are that's the minimum. You start with that.
Chief, before you talk about the technology, I seen Lieutenant Brian, was it
Yes.
Lieutenant? I seen you get ready to say something
Yes.
as council member was talking, so I wanted to make sure you had
Thank
that moment.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I wanted to bring up, a lot of people in throughout my meetings in the county think the state police just handle interstates in 68, I-81 and 70. We are a full-service barrack. So full service means that we're handling domestics, assaults, we're doing everything. So we're running from county end, which is over 400 and some square miles of roadway that we're covering. I just wanted to be clear of that because that puts that number even into a bigger context of saying I have 3 guys that if they go on a domestic and say it's all the way south in the county in Roarsville or Keysville, we're pulling either a deputy with us or we're pulling 2 of our guys, which then leaves my county 1 trooper for the whole county to handle. I just wanted to make sure, because some barracks like Rockville Barrack, they're only traffic, right? They don't go off the interstates, they don't do anything else. We do everything that these departments do for the county.
And usually that's split up between county and city roads, or county and state roads.
Yeah.
Like Route 67 down South County, the state police are primary
Correct.
jurisdiction there. So,
I
just to clarify that.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Lieutenant.
And we've been special deputized, the city police, to be able to handle calls in the county. And we're the only county that has
I
that,
think
that
we
has
are.
that. We are the only county in Maryland that has that, the only municipality that has that ability in the whole state. And under the previous sheriff was able to get that passed several years ago. So we all carry special deputy cards that allow us to go out into the county and assist without having to wait for that ask of the county. So that's unique to us here in the county, in Washington County as well. So that, again, force multiplies the ability of what we can do around here and shares that responsibility across the different agencies. So just wanted to bring that up as well.
Thank you, Chief.
So, yeah, so, as you guys are aware, and you guys have been very, very kind and forthcoming to me and my agency in my time here of providing the funding and the ability to purchase and get technology to offset the staffing shortages that we all face. So we've got probably, and I will say with pretty confidence, we have the best citywide camera system in the state. We rely on that camera system and expanding it all the time. That system has proven itself more than valuable in terms of solving crimes and doing the things that we need to do. To the point that I know that the sheriff's detectives and his deputies will reach out to us on almost a daily basis, asking us to look for things on our camera system for things that's happened in the county. So we've been able to help them with solving crimes because we've captured things on our camera system here that helps them solve crimes in the county, which helps the crime rate in the city. Because if they're in the city on our camera system, even though they didn't commit the crime that time here, they did it somewhere else, they were probably doing something illegitimate here as well. So that system alone and the expansiveness of that system has more than paid for itself with crime fighting. And for that, I'm very gratefully appreciative of that. And we put a lot of time and effort into it, making it fiber optic, best quality camera system you can do, and the associated software that goes along with that. And then in 2022, we started talking about the drone program, and you guys provided me the funding to purchase a lot of drones. So we're up to 16 drones, and we're in pushing 20 drone operators right now, which a lot of people looked at me and said, "You're crazy for having that many flight operators for your drone program." But the reason why I wanted to go with that is because I wanted those drones being flown every day as much as possible, and pretty much every day. And Scott gets the notifications on his phone as well. Those drones are flying almost every day, multiple times a day, for various reasons, whether it's surveillance, whether it's for the SWAT team getting ready to go into a building. They're flying the drone in beforehand because it's safer. It's safer on the people inside the building. It's safer for the guys getting ready to go in that building. We're flying it for the dirt bikes. You knew about that. We're flying it for surveillance when we're getting ready to do a search warrant in case someone wants to flee. You've seen the videos when we had the burglary suspects on top of the Home Depot shopping center in the middle of the night, and with the infrared, we were able to capture, all those characters for doing what they were doing. Things that wouldn't have happened without that. And the key to that is those drones take the place of 6 to 8 officers when you think about it. In order to surveil a location, you have to set up a perimeter. I can do with a drone to take place of 8 people when you think about it. I can sit on top of a house and look at every direction around that house with just that drone. And I can now reposition the staff that I have more strategically to be more efficient in whatever that operation is going to be. We couldn't have caught the dirt bikes without that. We did that with minimal staffing, catching all the dirt bike and four-wheeler riders, because I only needed a couple people, really. So a drone operator and a surveillance person for them, and 2 other people was able to take down all the dirt bike riders. 4 people. That would have never been done without those drones. So we've used the technology in that fashion. We started the watch center. That watch center is staffed. It's telephonic call taking, staffed by retired cops, retired dispatchers, and some civilians that just have the ability to do that. They take police calls over the phone. Why? That takes the amount of call volume off of the police officers on the street. So if I have minimal staffing of 6, and if I can reduce that call volume by 30%, then that gives those officers more time to go deal with those calls that require them to be on scene. So, and we've met that, and we've proven that over the course of the last year or so, which is why we've expanded the hours of the watch center, so that we can handle more calls, freeing up the officers that we have, those 6, to handle those more important calls. Because the calls that we take now usually require more than 1 officer to respond on those calls. So for every call you're taking, where I could use, in the past, I could go on that call by myself, and the sheriff could go on that call by himself, we're now having to go on those calls together, which means we're handling more calls per person. So by reducing those calls for service by 30%, frees those guys up and takes some of that taxing stress off of them. So we've done that with the watch center. So that's just a few of the things that we've done. We're looking to expand upon that with drone. We're looking at drones to be used as a first responding call for service in the very near future. That technology is here. We've been working on putting together a presentation for that moving forward, and we'll be able to use our watch center staff. Will literally be able to fly a drone out and handle a call, certain types of calls, with the drone. Again, never having to leave the building, never having to take those guys on the street away from what they're doing in the patrol car. I'm a realist, and the realist in me says that, the days of having a 25-year employee for pretty much any industry anymore is a thing of the past. Let's look at nursing, the nursing field. How many years ago did you ever hear of traveling nurses? That's all you hear about now. Pretty much the nurses you see when you go to the hospital, emeritus and other, are traveling nurses. Why? Because that's the nature of the beast. So those nurses aren't staying there for 25 years. They're going to go someplace else for whatever reason down the road. And in law enforcement, we've seen the same trend. We're seeing 5 to 7 years is a good year, and I know the sheriff brought that up himself. And that's what we've started to plan for, a 5 to 7 year employee. Yes, we want them to stay 25 years because we get better value out of them. And if we can do that, then that's a win for everybody. But if I have to replace someone after 5 or 7 years, that's a 2-year commitment to try to replace them. From hiring to getting through the process, to getting through an academy, to getting on the streets, almost a 2-year process. That's the difference between law enforcement and the other fields, trucking companies or nursing staff. Once you're certified in those things, you can go take that job and start right away. It's not like that in law enforcement, unless you're already certified in the state of Maryland. So that's where we are with the challenges that we seek. So instead of living in the past and expecting things to be the same as it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I've come to the realization that we need to rethink how we do things. So I've leaned into technology, I've leaned into my staff that's come up with these ideas, leaning into alternative ways of handling calls for service to work with the staff that I know I'm going to have. So yes, we're always looking to try to find ways to bring more people in the door and get more staff on the street because that's what we really need. And I'm not trying to say we don't. But the real is it without that staff, without those high numbers, I still have to get the job done. And we still have to get the job done. And I'm telling you here and today, we're getting the job done. We have produced more arrests in the last 2 years than we did when we had 20% more people 5 years ago. We've taken 3 times the amount of guns off the street. We have kept our crime stats lower than it was 5 years ago. And I provided those stats. The men and women on our police departments have done that. And we do it well. And it's hurtful for someone to say otherwise. Because the men and women of my police department, and I'll speak to that just to mine right now, they work their tails off every day.
So, yeah, I have to say, you know, when I received the communication and then was able to hear you address as respective members some of the points raised in that communication, to me, it read to a significant degree as one of coming from a point of maybe being a bit naive to the complexities of the everyday operations of those respective governmental units. And so, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way to the authors, except to say that, you know, we don't have this dialogue and these communications every day. We entrust at our respective governmental settings that the individuals and departments that we send out to do those jobs. And so I want to make it clear that, like, I don't share that perspective, but I think maybe at least for a couple of the points that I share some of that naivety. One of those being two of the points raised in point number 2, and I was hoping someone could maybe flesh that out a little for me, and that is the assertion that the collective police departments within the county should form or mobilize a multi-shift, round-the-clock unit targeting violent offenders. So that's one point that I read in there, and I was like, I don't know what that means, and I don't know how the police departments handle those specific individuals now. And then the other one was the point about the bringing in the other agencies to help, which I think the Narcotics Task Force is probably the best example of that. And so I was hoping someone else could also speak to, you know, how the umbrella of the Narcotics Task Force works. To me, those would be two beneficial points. One is, you know, do you have a unit mobilized to address violent offenders on a regular basis right now? And 2, what's the umbrella of the Narcotics Task Force look like?
Well, I'll speak to the task.
Okay.
I guess we want to say not the Narcotics Task Force, but a specialized task force to target violent crime. And as I told, you know, as I mentioned in the meeting we had 2 Mondays ago, if we do that, we're going to take away from something else because we're already taxed.
Okay.
I mean, as the chief said, I'll just give you a stat that I'm just sitting here thinking, I know that they're running 60,000 calls for service. We're on pace to run 94,000 calls for service in the county, and that doesn't count state police. That's 1 call for every resident in the whole county. 1 call for, you know, that's astronomical if you think about it, that we're even managing that volume. Now, some of those might be, hey, you know, a call for that we can handle over the phone or the watch center. Our duty officer handles some calls in the county. I'm sure the duty officer at the state police handles those. But that's a pretty astronomical number, 150,000 plus calls for just the 2 agencies. That doesn't count the other municipalities or the state police calls for service. So that was my concern, that we can address it from the Narcotics Task Force side, because usually when there's violent crime and we agreed on this, we had a board of directors meeting today. We agree on this. Usually when there's violent crime involved, there's drugs involved. It's hand in hand. Gun violence the same way. Guns involved, drugs involved, so they are already targeting those type of incidents with, some with our narcotics task force. Now, we may not say it's a violent crimes task force, and we're a little limited because we are partners with the DEA in that task force, our federal partner, which gives a lot of funding for our officers that are there for extra duties. So that's one thing that we were famous 20 years ago for setting up a special task force. I retired from the state of Maryland with Natural Resource Police, and I know the two troopers that are here remember the strike force. That was 20 years ago. They set it up, a statewide strike force, state police. I can't remember what governor it was under, but they would go to the municipalities throughout the state. If Salisbury was having a problem, they'd go down there and stay for a week, and they'd adjust the crime issue, whatever it is. So I think we were famous for doing that, but that's when we were flush with people. And, I said in that meeting 2 Mondays ago, and I'm sure Lieutenant Close can speak to this better, but in 1991, when I came on with the state, there was over 2,000 troopers. They're at 1,400 now.
Wow.
So those numbers have dwindled. The same as ours have went down a little bit, the same as the city. So I think we have ways to address those, but creating a special task force to target that violent crime, I think we're already doing that in some form and fashion, maybe in multiple ways. The warrant task force is a good example also. We know somebody that has a warrant out for their arrest for a violent crime, we're working every day. So, and that's 5 deputies, 2 city police officers, and a trooper assigned to that they're serving. I don't even know the number off, but it's astronomical, the number of warrants that we're serving in the county. We average about 340 a month coming into the sheriff's office that we process. So I hope that answers your question a
Yeah.
little bit. So if you can speak to that any at all.
Yes, sir. I was asking the first sergeant, I always get these letters and these little nicknames we call our units and groups confused. So, we have a unit called the SOG, it's the Strategic Operations Group. I know of at least 7 members out of my barrack and out of the Western Troop that are a part of this. So what we do is we combine efforts with the Sheriff's Department, HPD, and I go ahead, I didn't take it upon myself, but it's been working this way. So what I do is I look at our manpower schedules and I look and look and look. And then I confer with the Sheriff's Department, HPD, and say, hey, let's go do this for 2 days. And we do it. Effectively, we've done over 30 of these initiatives on feeder routes to and from the city. So I didn't even count the ones that we're doing in my MAS areas or hotspot areas for crashes or crime. That would be 65, such in like those areas. So, I mean, I have the stats that show what we have been doing, and the initiatives and the cooperation that we're doing together is making a big difference. I don't know if you heard last weekend, one of the troopers was struck while working in the city. These are the things that we do for business, right? And we go in there, and these guys are very educated. They're very technically experienced troopers, and they're coming from parts of the state, not just from Washington County. We're pulling them from Western Maryland, we're pulling them from Cumberland, Allegheny, and Gary counties, and they're coming down here and they're giving it the effort. We have our gun task force unit. I have 2 of those at the barrack. They're very involved. I was just talking to one of them this morning. They were down such in Leonardtown. I mean, they go all over the state when it is needed. We have the warrant task force sheriff has touched on. I have 1 trooper that's involved in that. I looked at the stats yesterday and I was very impressed that these guys aren't just going out and getting paid. They're actually going out and doing some work. I get the stats, the criminal investigations, just for a 6-month period, almost a 7-month period, we have 61 criminal investigations occurring in the city. The state police does. Please understand that. And then we have arrests. For 2024, we have 33. Incident reports taken, 91. These are in cooperation with these gentlemen, that were, the Maryland State Police are putting their badge and their design into supporting this city and moving forward. Other units I probably have forgotten. We have so many. We have auto theft units. We have CVD's now going to be a part of it. There are commercial vehicle enforcement division. You say, well, why would you bring those in now? Well, everybody knows what they drive, so they think they're only watching trucks, right? Well, they're still state troopers, and they can still enforce all the laws that anywhere else in that. So it's kind of, we're making it a contribution. The three agencies are doing that on a bi-weekly, monthly basis for the city of Hagerstown.
So I'll address the task force concept. So those of you that have been on the council for a while know that I've created that from time to time. When we've had an uptick in violent crime that's tangible with intelligence, I've created 30, 60, 90-day task forces to address the violent crime during those periods. And during at least one of those periods, the sheriff provided me 2 deputies the whole time. And we were able to take a grant that we had, our MSN grant, and pay for any of the overtime and the cost of him losing his staff, because he had to backfill overtime then to cover his duties on the other end of that. So for that time period, I had 2 deputies working with my task force that I put together to go out and address violent crime. So the idea of having just a violent crimes task force sounds great, but it takes actionable intelligence to do that. And you need to have things to focus on, whether it's geography or individuals. And when that doesn't happen on a regular basis, because it doesn't, then those individuals don't have the focus that you want them to have. So it doesn't make as much sense from an efficiency standpoint to put together a unit that's 24/7 when the need isn't necessary for 24/7. So we do that from time to time. We've put those task forces together when we need to. And during that 2-week period when we had those tragic incidents happen, none of those were related. None of those incidents had any relationship to each other. They were spontaneous, in-the-moment situations that became tragic for this community. That is nothing that a violent crimes task force could have had any impact on. It just wouldn't have had an impact on that. So, as I said earlier, when I've asked, when we've had those kinds of things, upticks in that happen, I ask, and they never say no. They provide me what they can, and we find ways to help with that. So if I've got a grant to pay for that staffing that they're going to supply me, then I do that, because I know he's got to pay for the overtime to backfill his shifts. And we find a way to support that on the other end of that. So we're not hurting each other in that same way. So I'm very grateful for both of these men up here and what they do for my agency and what they've asked. We've asked them weeks ago to come in here, and when their deputies or troopers are coming through the city, we gave them some targeted locations that if they're in that area, make a couple of traffic stops for us, be visible for us, send a message just by making some traffic stops, which is I think what happened with the trooper that got struck. They were in here doing what I asked them to do, and but they're doing it at the ability of what they can.
Yeah, I think one of the comments that you stated at the meeting the other Monday, sorry, just a comment, that I found interesting was the comment that it seems like those types of criminal activities used to be more interconnected than they are today, and today they seem more spontaneous than they used to be. So,
We have a portion of our population that decided that violence is a way to solve their interactions when they have trouble with someone else. Where before the violence was fistfights, now someone's carrying a gun, and it's unfortunate.
It's like double dutch. She's been trying to get in there. So.
No, I'm gonna echo, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your service and for speaking on public safety again. But this time we have the opportunity for everyone to hear what's going on. So with that, we get questions all the time. Just hire more officers. Just do it. So can you speak to recruitment and retention process or efforts and the hiring process for everyone
I'm gonna
to,
let them go first.
okay.
Yeah, you can go first.
We're actively recruiting. If you watch our social media pages, you'll see us everywhere. We're going into high schools, we're going into colleges, we're going out of state, we're going down south, we're going every direction we can find troopers. We have 21, I believe, 20 in the academy. We started with 30, they quit. Our retention, me, my group, the first sergeant, we're all about in the same boat, 27, 28, 29 years. 2025 is gonna be a tough year for MSP. The drop kicks out. Those people that have been in a 5-year drop gotta go. So now we're looking at, we're gonna lose a lot of people. I don't even know what the attrition rate's gonna be. But we are recruiting. I meet with the parents when the cadets are hired, when they are sent down for our leadership course down in Sykesville for a weekend. I meet with the parents. The number one thing is we're worried about our children. As compared to what it was 25 years ago when my parents were like, go get a job, do it. Now they're thinking liability, they're thinking what harm the child's gonna be. The biggest thing is the perception of the public of what officers, troopers, deputies are treated like. So it's very hard to get those kids. And that's why we're in the schools as much as possible. We get into the high schools, you see us. SROs in our high schools left and right. We're hoping that's gonna help us, but effectively, I don't know what the future is gonna hold for the Maryland State Police with
Wow.
retention of people.
Wow. Thank you, Lieutenant.
I think every police agency is going through this. You know, we just hired a lateral person that came from Cambridge, Maryland. They have authorized to 50 officers. They have 20 vacancies. So they're working double shifts all the time. Now, he was moving to this area. That's why he came here. So, you know, that's just, I mean, I don't even know how you overcome that. So we're lucky at the county. We're in pretty good shape. Numbers wise, we do have 9 people in the academy, so that's 9 people that aren't on the street. And as the chief spoke to it, it's a good 18 months to 2 years from the beginning to the end. We have 2 hiring processes coming up, you know, and I know previous years, I think we have, Hagerstown City has lost a few people to the sheriff's office. But since I've been there, there's only been one person that has been a lateral transfer. We don't want to do that because that hurts us just as much as it hurts the Hagerstown City because, you know, vacancy is a vacancy in the county. So, you know, we're doing the same type of things, trying to get to the youth younger and get them, you know, mentor them up through the, you know, their middle school to high school years and bring them along to. We have a cadet opening that's been open over 7 months. We haven't had an application. So, and we have a criminal justice program in the schools. We're working with them to try to mentor that, to bring it along. It's just, I think the pendulum's starting to swing back the other way with support for the police world. But I think it's just a slow process that we're gonna get there. You know, it's getting better, but it's still not like it was when us 4 came on years ago.
Thank you.
So yeah, we've been doing very similar things. We've got billboards up. You know, you've all seen the billboards from Montgomery County on Dual Highway, Montgomery County PD. There's a reason why Montgomery County is advertising up here, because they're having the same problem that we're having. I can't advertise east of here because we don't pay what they pay in Montgomery County, and that's not a dig on this body here or what, but we just don't. So we're advertising the opposite way. So we're up in the Harrisburg area and we're up west doing our advertising, and we're on the radio, we're on our social media stuff. We've got a company that we've hired for the last couple of years that does a lot of our promotion for recruiting. We're getting a ton of people putting in the inquiry through our website to want to come take a test. You know, we invited, I think, 65 people that put their inquiry in for this last test, and we had 8 people show up. We have a test coming up that we've had 40-some people who have been invited, and we have 3 right now that are saying they're going to come. Now, these are people that actually reached out to us and said they want to be police officers. So I don't have an answer for that. You know, I agree. I think the pendulum's swinging somewhat. We hired 19 people last year. We lost 19 people last year. So we had a net zero gain. We only lost 3 to other agencies though. But, you know, as I said, we had 10 people going in the last academy. I had 10.
Can you
And
say that again?
Yeah, man.
You only lost 3 to what?
to other agencies last
So
year.
the other 16 went into other professions.
Or quit, or just quit, yeah. Yeah, or retired. Yeah, retire, we had 7 retirements and then the rest of them just left.
Some of it's had due to burnout.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they're just running call to call to call.
So that's the challenges that we face. So we're constantly trying to new things. I've got Jack Moulton's one of my, you know, he runs my accreditation for the police department, and he's a national accreditor for CALEA. So he travels around the country and does assessments for other agencies, and he's looking at what they're doing for recruiting, and everyone's doing the same thing. They're trying as much as we can. We're taking everything out of the kitchen sink and throwing it against the wall, and we're pulling the kitchen sink out and we're throwing it against the wall, and we're seeing what sticks. And if you're going to try 1,000 people to hire one, that's where we're at today in policing. You know, we're fighting for that one individual to get, because that pool of people that want to get into law enforcement is a lot smaller than it used to be, and we're all competing for that same pool of people. And that's why we hire people 3, 4, 5 months ahead of the academy, because if you don't, in the past, you didn't hire them until right before the academy started. If you don't hire them before that, someone else is going to pick them up. And like I said, the last academy, I had 10. And 2 of those gentlemen quit the week before the academy. 1 quit right after the academy started. We lost 1 that couldn't get through the academy, and 1 quit a month after they got out of the academy. And I was left with 5. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating for the men and women that are out there every day being taxed with all these calls, and you know they're suffering from it real time, and they feel it every day. But it's frustrating for all of us in the command level too, because you see, hey, I got 10 people. Yeah, this is gonna be great, and then now I'm down to 5. You know, and that net gain hurts. You start seeing that, and so it's been tough. But you know, we're trying everything we can. You know, the video you saw that my guys put out for the SROs to back to school, it was just a fun little video. It's just trying to show people that it's not so bad. You know, the Justice Reinvestment Act from a couple years ago really hurt us. That's part of what we hear from family members, that I don't want my kid going into law enforcement because they're going to get sued. They're going to get held criminally responsible for what they've done because Maryland's passed these laws. That's proven not to be true, but it's going to take some time to get that message back out again. But that caused us to lose some people then when that happened as well. That fear of not being protected had a major impact, and still does to some extent. So there's a lot of things that's happened over the last couple of years that's really impacted policing specifically. And you know, COVID and George Floyd incident were the catalyst for those things, and then laws changed and attitudes changed, and just, you know, work ethic has changed in across the society as a whole. But trying to get someone through our process is hard. We hire less than 10% of the people that actually get past the test. They can't be truthful in a lot of ways. We can live with a lot of things in law enforcement. You can get through the process if you just tell the truth, and we tell them that every single time through multiple steps, and they will lie about the smallest little thing that doesn't mean anything. And once you lose that integrity, I can't have you. I can't take you. And so many people have that happen.
Thank you.
I was at a Main Street business owners meeting this morning, and there were compliment after compliment for the officers that are downtown and helping, particularly on game nights or whenever there was a need. I have a very unique perspective from this seat and from where I live on North Prospect, and where I own a business on Summit across from the Dagmar, and where I try to get people to invest in businesses on Mulberry and on Prospect. And what we hear is that the city is unsafe. that it is, which is why we're sitting here, right? And that people don't want to come down, and people definitely feel safer in crowds, right? So is there, when we go through the city, when I walk downtown or whatever, there are individuals that can be a little bit intimidating, and so people feel intimidated to walk about, right? Is there something that we as this body or the next administration can do to change an ordinance, to do a policy change that would be effective in order to help the public actually feel safer? And again, I know how much work the city police does. They do it for me, they do it, and I heard it this morning. There's no denying that you are all doing an incredible job, but people still don't feel like it's okay to come downtown unless there's a big event. So I'm wondering if there's something that can be done administratively that would be very helpful for you. Not more officers, but a policy change.
No.
Okay.
The reason why is that, what are you gonna create an ordinance for to deal with people that are more poor than we are? That don't look like we do, that don't have as much money, that might be homeless, that may be struggling financially, that would rather be outside communicating with their friends and people on the street than inside their house. Any city, anywhere has this problem. And I challenge anyone that says that they don't feel safe to tell me when they don't feel safe, their actual experience. I say this all the time when I go out and speak in community meetings. How many people have experienced a violent crime themselves? And you very seldom see a hand go up. How many people know someone personally that's experienced a violent crime? And you see very few hands go up, but yet everyone's afraid.
That's right.
And why is that? Because we've all been primed to be afraid. Every movie that's an action movie, innocent people die, right, from gun violence. The media, from all the stories that we see, is always the negative stuff that usually sells the newspapers and the radio ads and the TV ads is all the negative stuff. Because good feeling stories, no one's gonna sit and watch. That one at the end of the newscast, everyone's already turned the TV off and has moved on. So they don't wanna see that one. So we've all been primed to be afraid. There's goodness in that. There's good to be afraid, keeps you safe. But downtown is not unsafe. The numbers and the stats and the crime that we respond to doesn't dictate that. It just doesn't. So from this body, I would suggest that you keep doing what you're doing, which is the investment in downtown to get investors and to get businesses that create that crowd. Because if you go to DC or Baltimore, does anyone feel unsafe in the Inner Harbor? If you were there at 3 a.m, you probably wouldn't feel safe because there's not as many people there. If you go down to the mall area of DC, you might not feel that safe if there's not that many people there. But I can tell you that when you go to those areas, there's just as many homeless people, there's just as many people that are poor, but there's so many more people using the space legitimately. And that's what you're talking about with the baseball game. When I say legitimately, there are people there doing their business. They're going to restaurants, they're doing those things. It's called natural surveillance. That makes people feel safe, the more people that are around. But if you're walking down the street and you're by yourself and you see a group of young men, white or black, doesn't matter, walking towards you at 11 o'clock at night, and any of the women on the stage or even the men on the stage, you're gonna feel uneasy. Whether they had any intent to do anything wrong to you or not, you're gonna feel uneasy. That's normal human behavior. But downtown's not unsafe.
And I think that was my point, is that, we see these things on social media. Shame on us for reading the comments. I told everyone not to read them. But it's really easy for people to say, well, just do this or just do this, and it's not safe. And I don't want to go downtown because I'm afraid of all of these things. But you're right. I have been walking downtown and living down. I've never felt that way. And I have investments in pretty high crime areas. So I think that for you to say these things, I just think that we need to keep reiterating that and keep like doing what you're doing, what we're doing, what you're doing. But again, you know, we battle this all the time with we'll just change this ordinance or create this policy. But you're right, that's not all that there is to it. Thank you.
Councilmember?
I'll just say that I first appreciate the spirit of cooperation amongst the agencies. It's definitely noticed, but and I'm sure it feels a bit like a broken record for you guys. I know that you've kind of been on tour with some of the same question and answers lately. But it's good for everyone to kind of all be on the same page because we don't know what we don't know. So I really appreciate the statistics. And I'll take one step further to Councilmember McIntyre's question to you, because that was going to be mine. On the local level, is there anything as far as an ordinance? There's a lot of mention of panhandling ordinance or different things that we could do to help to make your job easier. Beyond that, is there anything that we can lobby our state or higher up legislators that whether it's a letter of support or something like that we can do to at least make Hagerstown's needs known to help you? And I'm sorry to put you on the spot with that, but
No, that's quite right. I've said this, and I have no problem saying this. The Justice Reinvestment Act took things a little too far. One of those things was the reducing the accountability of juvenile crime, and we're seeing that really starting to grow. The fact that juveniles can't be held accountable because of an age, and that age got raised to a just unimaginable age just baffles me. That a juvenile can come out and commit a crime can smash your car completely up with a baseball bat, and if they're at a certain age, we can't charge them with a crime. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So lobbying the legislature to reverse some of those laws and bring it back a little more center. I have no problem with some of the things they've done. Some of the things needed to have some change, but they went way too far. And they've made what we can do a whole lot harder, and that's problematic for all of us. The issues that the biggest issue that the city of Hagerstown is dealing with is a perception issue of crime is associated to vagrancy, homelessness, addiction, and mental health. Think about it. You mentioned it, Councilman McIntyre, what the visuals that people see, that's what you see.
That's why.
That's what makes people think that it's unsafe here, is that image of those things that does not relate and is correlated to violent crime. The people that did those crimes a few weeks ago were not the people that we see walking around downtown that people see that they're afraid of. They had nothing to do with that. So that's the issue that we've got. And if there's anything that we need to do as a city, as a county, and as a state, is to start addressing those social issues and those issues that are at the forefront of what we take the majority of calls on.
Did you say 8 years of resources within 6 months?
We did for a homeless coalition meeting about a month and a half ago. We looked at some numbers, and it's anecdotal. It's not scientifically there because we'd have to parse through the numbers a little bit more. But when we ran the numbers, we spent just in the first 6 months of this year 8 man-years of time on calls for social issue calls.
8 years.
8 years, 8 man-years of calls. So I mean, that's how much we spent in time just in 6 months on social calls, homeless, addiction, mental health. That's what we deal with. That's not new. That's what we've been dealing with for a long time. It's gotten a little bit more because the problem's gotten bigger. And the fact that we have no place to take people that are homeless, or we don't have facilities for the people that are suffering substance abuse. We don't have places to put people that they would take that are under mental crisis. That falls on policing. We get to deal with it when that's not really a policing matter. But we've got to deal with it. And then our community feels that because that's what they see every day. And it's not just here. It's not here. But that doesn't associate to violent crime. And I'm not saying people that have those conditions aren't committing some crime, but they're not committing violent crime. That's not associated. We're not seeing that in all of our data. That doesn't happen. No, it could happen, but it doesn't happen on a regular basis. That's what I'm saying. So normally, that's not what it is.
Is there anything else?
Thank you.
Questions?
Just thank you, Chief, Sheriff, Commander, Sir Sergeant, thank you for being here and for your comments. And thank you for helping the public understand the truth.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Just a short recess real quick. Short recess.